Hello everyone and welcome to another RPG Retro Review. Thanks for watching. In this video, I'm going to revisit one of my favorite Dungeons & Dragons retro games, Castles and Crusades. Now, I know I did a rather in-depth review of this game previously, but I wanted to talk about the new printings of the game after the successful Kickstarter campaign to bring all 3 core rulebooks to full color printing. This set of core rulebooks is probably one of the most gorgeous printings I've had the pleasure to own and incorporates all the errata from the previous printings. So what I want to do is give a brief overview of the Player's Handbook and the Monsters and Treasures books and do a review of the Castle Keeper's Guide, which is probably one of the best Game Master Fantasy supplements to come out in the last decade. Before I begin, if you are not familiar with Castles and Crusades, you might want to check out my previous review here, which goes into detail on the game and the game's core mechanic, the Siege Engine. And then come back. Go ahead. I'll wait. Okay? Back? Great, let's get started. I really love the new layout of the Player's Handbook, and for us older gamers, the larger type setting is a welcome change. I also like the new vellum look paper. Comparing to the 5th printing, it's much less busy, and with the larger type, much easier on the eyes. The pages are thick and glossy, perhaps a bit too glossy for the taste of some. I love the feel and look of it, but when in my reading chair, with light overhead, a slight glare is caused. Nothing major, but a minor nitpick for me. As you can see, as I page through here, the artwork is just top-notch, and the production values rival anything Piazzo or Wizards of the Coast have produced. Considering that Castles and Crusades has been in print since 2004, it's about time its smooth play mechanics were matched up with a more modern, high-production look. The Monsters and Treasures book is also given the same treatment, with color illustrations of the world's most dangerous denizens. And it should be noted that this printing is fully compatible with the 5th printing, as well as all those that came before. Though you will probably want to own at least a copy of the 5th printing of Castles and Crusades or going forward, as that is the rulebook that introduced multi-classing and the class and a half option, which is Castles and Crusades' unique take on multi-classing, and a very outstanding addition to the rules. A well-designed alternative to traditional multi-classing that foregoes the hefty XP penalties of traditional multi-classing in favor of limited benefits of a supporting class. One of the hallmarks of Castles and Crusades is its flexibility due to its bare-bone mechanics, and the Castle Keeper's Guide not only provides wonderful details on things a CK needs, but also ways to alter and meld the game to suit the taste of not only himself, but his players. The Castle Keeper's Guide is literally 300 pages of optional rules for Castles and Crusades, very well thought out and presented. As one pages through this massive 352-page tome, it becomes clear that in many ways it is a spiritual successor to the first edition Dungeon Master's Guide. There is an abundance of articles about the adjudication of the game and its various aspects, but also some very practical things as well. The first chapter deals with the character. Right away, useful information is presented. Information on playing every class from the 13th to 20th level with new abilities to go with this higher level of play. On page 32, there are rules on character height, weight, age, and aging by race, with corresponding charts that really take one back to the old first edition Dungeon Master's Guide charts on the same subject. And then, an excellent section on languages and learning new languages. Then there's some more information on races provided, specifically on how to introduce new races or monster races into the game, or how to modify the existing races from the player's handbook. Several pages are dedicated to spellbooks, their creation, cost, and maintenance. On page 43 and 44, every spell with a spell component is listed, component availability, and a cost for acquiring components is provided. After that, the suggestion that wands and holy symbols could be used in lieu of components, thus providing a logical game mechanic reason to enforce traditional fantasy tropes. Why do wizards use wands? Well, so they don't have to walk around with a bunch of material components to cast their spells, of course. In Chapter 3, the Castle Keeper is given a massive amount of detail on equipment, costs, and the adjudication of such things as room and board costs at an inn, meals, and provisions. The level of detail here is astounding, but when combined with just how useful these guidelines are, even for the experienced referee, underscores just how great this book is. Even if you don't play Castles and Crusades, this kind of information would be useful for any fantasy campaign. Chapter 4 goes into detail on non-player characters. Here, the CK Guide gives more information on creating NPCs and talks about how to represent the everyday people the PCs encounter, and not just in game statistics, but how to infuse personality and detail into the everyday people that might be encountered on an adventure, which the CK Guide calls adherents. Rules are given on how a CK might go about assigning statistics to these NPCs, and a massive list of such characters is given. Advisors, bounty hunters, fletchers, counterfeiters, scribes, taxmen, and more. The list is pretty massive, but then several pages are dedicated to a description of each as well. Once again, paralleling a similar section in the old Dungeon Master's Guide, but with greater detail. No harlot table to be found here, however. Then, information is given on locating these NPCs and costs on hiring them. Really, it's just great information and valuable for a novice referee, but amazingly useful for the experienced one as well. Then we get a detailed treatment on henchmen, their morale, and hiring. Once again, valuable information, but also reminiscent of the type of information found in the old 1E Dungeon Master's Guide. Chapter 5 deals with world creation. Chapter 6 is a treatise on the medieval fantasy city. Chapter 7 is about dungeons. Chapter 15 goes into detail on the siege engine and how to adjudicate its use. Chapter 17 is a massive chapter on running combat. Chapter 18 looks at skill packages with a detailed treatment of secondary skills, another callback to the old 1E Dungeon Master's Guide, but updated for Castles and Crusades. It also adds in rules for advantages, which is really the Castles and Crusades take on feats. I really love this section. Some of these advantages are pulled directly from the 3rd edition of the rules, but most are customized for use with Castles and Crusades, with lists for race, class, and then general use advantages. Chapter 19 concludes the book with a look at character death, disease, and insanity. Once again, another callback section, but wonderfully detailed and updated. There are also rules for the use of fate points and hero points, which can help characters defy the odds when the dice fail them. While the Player's Handbook provides the core rules of the game, the Castle Keeper's Guide talks in detail on how to run the game and how to modify things to suit the taste of the participants. Castles and Crusades is a bare-bone rules set to begin with, so it's quite easy for a CK to modify and customize things without breaking it. The Castle Keeper's Guide is a well-thought-out, well-presented tome on how to do just that. Finally, you will be happy to know that a rulebook with this much detail also includes a comprehensive index in the back. All in all, I can only classify this book as a masterpiece of modern role-playing reference works, page after page packed with useful information that technically could be used for any fantasy RPG, but eminently useful for use with Castles and Crusades. Well, that's about all I have for you for this video. I hope I've given you some useful information and piqued your interest in this well-done reference work. Coming up, I've got a complete review of 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons. After playing this game for almost 2 years now, I've accumulated a fairly long list of praise and criticisms I'd like to share. Back in 2014, I began this channel with a 4-part look at all the editions of Dungeons & Dragons, and this will essentially be Part 5 of that series. Then a classic RPG retro review on the G series Against the Giants. I've had a few requests to review the newly released Curse of Strahd super module from Wizards of the Coast. It's something I plan on getting to, but since it's not a retro module per se, it might be a while before I get to it. Thanks everyone so much for watching. I always enjoy your comments, so please comment below, subscribe, and let me know what you'd like me to review next. As always, my friends, may your D20 roll true, and game on!